Hello and welcome to Genealogy Adventures. Today we're going to be going over the Freedman's bank records. I'm going to spend a little bit of time introducing the history behind these records, and then I'm going to show you a specific example from my own family history research. For me, these are amazing, powerful records, and on the face of it, it looks quite simple. It's a little bit of card, has a bit of information about the person who was opening up the account. But what's really helping with these is going back even further into the family history. A lot of times through using these kind of records, I've actually been able to extend my family history all the way back to the middle to early 1700s. And again, as an African American researching family histories, to be able to push your family history back that far is really quite an accomplishment, and if you can do it, it's something that you should definitely feel proud of. So without further ado, I'm going to spend a little bit of time just introducing the history behind these records and kind of explaining a bit about why they're important. So to start with, the Freedman Savings and Trust Company, otherwise known as the Freedman's Bank, was basically set up and incorporated by the United States Congress on the 3rd of March, 1865. And the bank maintains something like 37 offices, give or take a few, in 17 states, also including Washington, D.C. Unfortunately, due to mismanagement, abuse, fraud, and other economic factors, the Freedman's Bank actually failed in 1874. So it just goes to show you that bank failures aren't necessarily a modern thing. The downside of that is, once it failed, it left tens of thousands of people in economic ruin. The original records for the Freedman's Bank, they're housed in the National Archive facility in College Park, Maryland. And believe it or not, they are available on microfilm at College Park. And they're also available in the National Archives building in downtown Washington. Even better, you don't have to go to Washington, D.C. or Maryland to actually access them. Popular websites such as Family Search, which is a free family search website, also Ancestry.com, and one or two others, have spent a great deal of time digitizing these records and making them freely available online. Well, freely is a bit of a relative term. They're free on Family Search. Obviously, to access them on Ancestry.com, you have to pay their fee. While the failure of the Freedman's Bank is definitely a tragedy and left many African Americans with feeling distrustful of the American banking system, the records themselves, actually created by the bank, are a really rich source of documentation for Black family research for the period immediately following the American Civil War. The thing that makes these records so important are the thousands of signature cards that contain the personal data about the individual depositors. In addition to the names, ages of the depositors, the files also contains the places of birth, where they lived when they actually opened up the account, their occupations, and in many instances, they also contain the names of the depositor's parents, spouse, children, brothers and sisters, and in some cases, even the names of their former slave owners. While the names and other personal information about the individual depositors is extremely important, as I've been really stressing through the whole kind of series of genealogy adventure posts and videos, it's the stories behind the names that have people like me, their descendants, combing through rolls of microfilm and spending hours online researching these kind of records, basically to search for the keys to unlock kind of the mysteries of who these people were, where they came from, and to really kind of get a glimpse of what their day-to-day life must have been like. These are stories that can reveal struggles, sacrifice, courage and determination, hopes, ambitions. These are all the things that really make our ancestors just kind of leap off the page and really come alive. And it's this kind of a thing that really does make them seem three-dimensional rather than just a name, a date of birth, and a place of residence. So without further ado, let's get stuck in. The image that you're looking at here on the video is the Family Search website. It's their wiki page, and it has the kind of information that you would actually expect from Family Search about this kind of a thing. Really detailed kind of description of the records and how they came into existence and the kind of information that you can find. They also give lots of information about how you can use them and kind of tips and tricks about how to get yourself familiarized with Freedman bank records. So the URL, if you want to go surfing off to this yourself, I'm afraid it's a bit of a long one if you're going to be typing it in by hand. URL for it is this URL here. And then all the various links to all the information that Family Search, their website, have about these records can all be found here. It's very easy to surf, and it's very easy to find out more information about these kind of records. So the individual I'm going to be showing you today is Philip Rhone. He's an interesting one because his father, Kingston Rhone, was born in Virginia, lived in Tennessee, where he had a number of children, who all mysteriously came back to Virginia at some point. And then this chap here, Kingston Rhone Jr., went off to South Carolina and Tennessee and some other wonderful places as well. So he's an interesting case. Again, it's a case of someone's children kind of being separated from the rest of the family, still being kept within the main kind of Rhone slave-owning family. Obviously, I haven't figured out which white Rhone left Virginia for Tennessee, but whoever it was took Kingston, his wife May, and his 3 daughters with him to Tennessee. But that's probably another story for another day. I really do want to concentrate on this chap here, good old Philip, who was born in 1825. So what can the Freedman bank records actually tell us about him? Well, to be honest, that one record, which we're going to see in about 2 minutes, told me everything that I needed to know about Philip's immediate family. Because until I actually came across that record, I'd only ever found Philip Rhone and his wife Harriet in census returns, 1870, 1880s census returns. I didn't know if he had any brothers or sisters. I didn't know anything about his parents. So all this picture that you're looking at here, which is seemingly a pretty simple and straightforward branch of a family tree, all of this information came from that one card, which is right here. And I guess for me, I never get bored coming back to these cards just because the information that they contain, I just find it really and absolutely fascinating. So here we have Philip Rhone. The date of his application to open up his bank account is the 10th of August, 1870. It gives the information about where he was born. I can't quite read that, and I have tried Googling various counties in Virginia that begin with an L, and I found them, but I can't quite decipher this writing. But basically, he was born somewhere near Richmond, Virginia. He was brought up somewhere near Richmond, Virginia, which is that line right here. In terms of his residence, as of the 10th of August, 1870, he's living on Raleigh Road, somewhere near Richmond. Gives his age, about 47 years of age, which is brilliant because it gives me an approximate year of birth for him, which again would be 1825. A little bit about complexion. So I guess he had a mid-brown skin tone. His occupation, general laborer. He's working for a brick mason company, again, presumably somewhere either in or around Richmond. And again, this is where things start getting even more fascinating. We have information about his wife, Harriet. So that confirmed what I found on both the 1870s and the 1880s census returns. And children, here it says none. The bit about children is also, it's probably information that people are quite tempted to dismiss, but in my case, it actually eases my family research and what I'm doing. There's probably about 10,500 names within my family tree database, and I'm always trying to make them as complete and accurate as possible. And I'm always a bit suspicious when I'm trying to trace a family tree down through the generations and then I can't find any information about children. Spend loads and loads of time trying to figure out whether one of my ancestors or someone from one of the other lines of the family tree have produced new generations. So at least for Philip and his wife Harriet, the fact that they didn't have any children in 1870s, I didn't find any information about children for them in the census returns. And now it's basically saying in this one that they didn't have any. I can kind of close that line down. I'm 95 to 99% sure that they never had any children. So basically, I can close this line down. It's gone as far as it can for him, and that's fine in terms of offspring, children, and subsequent generations. Scrolling a little further down, this is the gold dust information. All of the other stuff is really great, puts him in a brilliant context. As I said, he's a general laborer in and around Richmond, where he spent his entire life. He's working for brick mason companies, so I kind of get a sense of what day-to-day life must have been like. Being a bricklayer, working in a kind of a bricklaying yard or a construction yard. It's hard work, physical work. You have to be physically fit and robust to be able to do that on a day-to-day basis. So again, that's giving me a little insight into what Philip's day-to-day life was like. But here we go. There's his father, Kingston Rhone. As of 1870, Kingston's dead. I don't have, it's really, really great to be able to have his name. Unfortunately, I can't find any more information about Kingston. If Philip was born around 1825, that means that Kingston must have been born around maybe 1800, at perhaps the very latest. I would probably hazard a guess that Kingston was probably born, say, 1780s, 1790s. But it gives me a rough idea of where Kingston was when he was born. And chances are, because all of these Rhones were born in Virginia around that time, he too was probably born in Virginia. Information about Philip's mother, whose name was Mary. Again, by 1870, she's also dead. It gives me information about his brothers. There's a Kingston Jr., there's an Anderson, and there's a George. And also his sister. He has one sister, Betsy. Which is another reason why these cards can give you some really excellent insights into your family tree. This isn't particularly a good example of it. However, in other records I have seen where sisters have married, the brothers or fathers or mothers, whoever has actually opened up a bank account, has actually put their maiden name and their married name. So if Betsy Rhone had married, the chances are her married name would be here. Because again, in terms of African American history, especially before the Civil War and right after the Civil War, it's really difficult to find marriage records for African Americans. So if a sister has married, or if a mother is remarried, again, that information a lot of the time is actually included on the card and can be invaluable in terms of family research. What really kind of made this card a bit poignant to me was Philip has actually given some special instructions to the clerk who opened up his account. So basically he's saying, I'm opening up this account. Obviously, I can take money out of it and I can put money into it, but I also want to allow my wife, Harriet, to be able to access my bank account. And he even goes one step better. He actually gives a brief description of what she looks like. So we know she's of moderate height. She's about 5'5" or 5'6". And the rest of it, I have to admit, I'm kind of struggling to kind of read. But I thought it was kind of nice, and it really does make it poignant. I can get something of a picture of what his wife must have looked like, as well as him. And there's another nice little added element to these cards. This, again, not a good example of what I'm about to discuss, but in other cards that I've seen, and especially with my ancestors or their family members who lived in really, really quite rural areas, they kind of made it a family day out. Whole groups of them actually went down on the same day and opened up bank accounts with the Freedman Bank. And again, once you start getting familiar with the names of families who've married into your family, you start seeing them in the Freedman Bank records as well. And again, it's it's just that poignant story. And I could really imagine they must have gotten really, thinking about opening up a bank account. You've never had a bank account before. You've never been free before. You've never had that kind of financial control about how you're going to spend your money, what you need to buy, when do you need to buy it. And that whole sense of excitement of, we can have a bank account. Let's all go. As a family, let's go down to Richmond and get the deal done. Let's open it up. And last but not least, and again, I hope it's not me reading too much into it or just kind of getting really excited about, building up a personality and building up an insight into my ancestors. These cards, these Freedman bank record cards, show the progression of a people who were slaves and denied basically even a status of being human beings. So going from slaves to going to being seen and recognized as being human beings, to then going out and opening up bank accounts and having land and doing things and having their freedom. And all of that is part and parcel of being recognized and being seen as citizens of a country. Basic rights that other people had taken for granted for decades and centuries beforehand. These newly freed slaves, through records like this, they're just on the dawn of embarking on that journey. And I find that really, really incredible. That whole kind of journey, that whole psychological and physical journey that they must have undergone from the dawn of the Civil War, through the aftermath of the Civil War, going into that period of history called Reconstruction. And it's kind of cool to know that my ancestors were part of that progression. And again, they may not have gone on to become senators or congressmen or governors or whatever, but for the first time ever, they were citizens. And there's no better proof of that than looking at records like this. So that's me for today. I hope that's inspired you to kind of go off and do your research with the Freedman bank records. And as always, I hope that you found this helpful and informative. Until the next time, take care. Bye.